All okay?
Yes.
Good evening, everybody. Before we start the meeting, I would like to inform fellow councillors, officers and members of the public a few procedural points. Fire drill. We are not expecting a fire drill today, but in the event of a fire alarm, please do not use the lifts. Please use the stairs at the fire exits at either end of both the council chamber and the public gallery. Phones and laptops, please ensure that you turn off your mobile phones and have tablets or laptops switched to silent. Speaking in debates, we have a large agenda today, so I'd be grateful if all contributions can be concise and that the various time limits for speeches are respected. I'll come to that more later. Voting, apart from when we consider suspending the guillotine and confirming the minutes, we will use the electronic voting system for all other items when a vote is required. Comfort breaks. Should members leave the chamber during the debate of any item, they should satisfy themselves that they have heard enough of the debate and will be able to vote in an informed manner when they return. I would like to now formally commence the meeting of this council. Agenda item 1, election of the chair to the council 26-27. The first item of business is to receive nominations for the position of the chair for the year 26-27. As the nominee on notice, I would now like to hand over to the monitoring officer for this part of the meeting.
Good evening, councillors. May I see Councillor Griffiths to move the nomination for chair for the year of 26-27?
Thank you. And I'm absolutely delighted to propose Councillor Andy Sims for the position of chair up until the annual meeting on the 20th of May 2027.
May I please see Councillor Brian Bennyworth to second that nomination?
Thank you very much. I second that nomination.
Thank you. Councillor Sims, do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Please may I now see a show of hands for those in favour for the election of chair for 2026-27 as Councillor Andy Sims. Those against? Any abstentions? The vote is carried. I do hereby declare Councillor Andy Sims duly elected as Chair of Northamptonshire Council for 26-27 municipal year.
Northamptonshire Council Declaration of Acceptance of Office. I, Andy Sims, having been elected to the office of Chair of the Council for Northamptonshire, hereby declare that I take the said office on myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties thereof according to the best of my judgment and ability. I do solemnly declare that I will uphold the highest standards in performance of the functions of my office in accordance with the Council's Code of Conduct. Thank you. Agenda item 2, apologies. Are there any apologies for absence? Matt Davis for Reform Group.
Good afternoon, Chair. We've had apologies from Helen Campbell, Maurice Eglin, Frank Kilgallen, and Jan O'Hara. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor David Brackenbury.
Thank you, Chairman, and congratulations on your election. From the Conservative group, we've got two apologies, Councillor Harry Howes and Councillor Humberstone. Thank you.
Councillor James Towns.
I'll take that if I can. Could I have that also amended in the line of order, just because that's happened a couple of times now? Thanks so much. And thank you as well, Chair. Our apologies for the Green Group are just Councillor Leanne. Leanne Robinson. Thank you.
Councillor Mark Pengelly.
100% attendance, Chair.
Perfect. Councillor Jim Hakewell.
100% alliance.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. Are there any other apologies to be recorded? Agenda item 3, minutes of the special meeting of the Council and meeting of the Council held on the 21st of May 2026. The next item is the minutes of the special meeting of the Council and the ordinary meeting of the Council held on the 21st of May 2026. Are there any issues in relation to the accuracy of these minutes? I would like to move the minutes of both the special meeting of the Council and the ordinary meeting of the Council held on the 21st of May 2026. Please may I see a seconder?
Who's your move? Yep, Councillor Cheatley second.
Yeah. Thank you. Please may I see those in favour of both sets of minutes? Those, sorry, so show of hands.
Yep,
sorry.
so those in favour.
Those in favour. Those against. And are there any abstentions? The recommendation is carried. Agenda item 4, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest that members may wish to make in relation to any items of business to be discussed today? Agenda item 5, the Chair's announcements. I would like to welcome members of the public to the meeting, including those in the public gallery, as well as those watching online via the webcast. Please may I remind those in the public gallery, for your safety, to remain seated and only to stand when walking to your seat and on exiting the gallery. Before I make my announcements, if the Council would kindly join me in offering our formal congratulations and warm applause to Councillor Barbara Jenny on the honour of receiving the British Empire Medal in the King's Birthday Honours. And for a distinguished service to the community in East Northamptonshire. I've got a brief note, because obviously this was not the plan, as they say, but my on-the-job experience has been somewhat accelerated. So for now, I apologise for any errors, and I trust in the team here to help me keep me on track. We're all here to represent our communities. It's an honour that we should all treasure, working collectively, supporting these ends, and we'll always achieve the best if we work together for the outcome. The Chair's charities I'm going to split between two organisations. Wicksteeds, because it's local to me and it's a great setup there, and a charity very dear to my life, Two Wheels for Life, which is a Northamptonshire-based motorcycle charity working in Africa. I'm going to make one point, time. I will always be fair on time with speaking, but time limits are just that. And I will always keep meetings on track as best I can. So I will stop if we run over, quite brutally. Agenda item 6, leaders' announcements. Please may I see the leader of the council to make any announcements.
Thank you and congratulations, Chair. It's not every time that a chair is appointed with background music, even though I'd have probably chosen another theme. And I'm mindful of what you've said about time. So I wanted to start my address by acknowledging the significant achievement of Children's Services across Northamptonshire for their Ofsted inspection outcome. I'm sure you will have heard that Children's Services achieved a very positive Ofsted inspection outcome, with services provided being rated good overall and leadership and governance being judged as outstanding. I'll take that. This recognition reflects the significant progress made over recent years and marks an important milestone in our journey. Since 2019, the transformation of services has been substantial. Through strong leadership, effective partnership, working and sustained investment, teams across the Council and the Children's Trust have worked tirelessly to improve support for children, young people and families. All of us, corporate parents, should be very, very proud. This outcome shows that our collective efforts are making a real difference in this important area, to demonstrate a continued commitment to deliver better outcomes, creating brighter futures and providing high-quality services for children and young people. I would like to thank everyone whose hard work, dedication and commitment has helped contribute towards this achievement. It is truly outstanding. In particular, I'd like to thank Colin Foster and Debbie Lloyd from the Trust and our very own Cornelia Andercutt. Strong leadership of Children's Services since before the Council was even vested, of course, as well as the brilliant political leadership of Councillor Elizabeth Wright over the past year plus. I say our very own Cornelia, as she is now our permanent Executive Director of Children's Services and Statutory Director of Children's Services, following a competitive recruitment process, and thanks to everybody who took part in that. Cornelia has made a strong impact over the last year during a secondment from Northamptonshire Trust and has played a huge part in the progress. Now, last week I had the pleasure of attending the Local Government Association conference in Bournemouth. This provided a great opportunity to see what other councils are doing and to network on the wider stage. The conference had a bit of intrigue and a bit of excitement, but it was good to see, and it was good to see Northamptonshire Council setting out its stall and shining a guiding light for other councils on the subject of local government reorganisation. Our Chief Executive, accompanied by George, Libby and Guy, delivered a presentation at the conference's Innovation Zone, and I can honestly say the room was packed solid. The subject was chaos to confidence, building a unity council from the ground up. It was brilliant. People were literally queuing outside the door to get in. I've had such good feedback from that meeting, and the progress we're making is definitely getting noticed as we move forward with the delivery of our ambitious plans for the future that are set out in your corporate plan. And of course, many councils have today heard their fate on their own local government reorganisation plans and challenges. We're thinking of all elected members and staff today, and we'll help wherever we can. Another huge milestone last week was the reopening of the Kettering Library. It has been great to see the scaffolding come down and the doors open again after so long. And this is a most valuable local community resource. And the timing couldn't have been better with the kids starting their school holidays, and we've delivered it ahead of schedule and under budget. It's truly fantastic to see this important cultural facility reopening. Now, we had to postpone this council meeting, and we were unable to commend Councillor Barbara Jenny on her award for the British Empire Medal, otherwise known as the BEM, in the King's Birthday Honours. This is really an incredible achievement. Now, I've known Barbara for well over 20 years, and she's been an absolute delight to know and to be a friend and to work with. And I've taken the privilege of buying a small gift as a token to go with your award, and I wonder if you'd accept that from me. Yours and indeed David's.
Mrs. Barbara Jennett, BEM, would like to say thank you for your kindness and everything.
Thank you, Tom. Barbara and indeed David have given their lives to working for the community and being public servants, and that must always be remembered. I wanted to take the opportunity to thank all of our staff that are working so diligently through this hot weather. I know that there will be people who think I'm making a fuss and it's just a bit of hot weather, but when you're out doing physical roles like collecting refuse, grounds maintenance or road servicing, when the surface of the road reaches 60 degrees centigrade in the sun, you can imagine how challenging that is. So to wind up quickly, Mr. Chairman, I would like therefore to close this address by thanking our brilliant staff for continuing to provide services during this extreme weather and for the vital role they play in prioritising the safety of the most vulnerable people in North Northamptonshire. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Sorry, Chair, and I agree with everything that Martin said. I want to raise something, and I don't think anybody's forgot about it. I'm just going to. The last meeting got cancelled and called off, and not long before the last meeting, there was a railway crash that affected probably a lot of our friends, families and others from all over this chamber, because it happened with people catching the train from Corby, Kettering and Wellingborough and happened in Northampton. A train driver lost his life that day, somebody that served us, so I think it'd be appropriate for us to have a minute's silence because people sit and go to work and end up dying. I'm just wondering if that's something we could do, Chair, on your recommendation. I know it's something Martin would have done, but it's been a long time since.
Absolutely. I think that's a very good idea, and under the discretion of Chair, I'll allow the minute's silence. Okay, thank you, everybody. And thank you for raising that point. Agenda item 7, public participation. Councillors, we have received one request from a member of the public to read out a prepared statement in relation to item 9 on the agenda. Copies of the statements have been circulated. Please may I see Lynn Buckingham to read her statement. Lynn, you have 3 minutes to make your statement.
Thank you very much. I welcome the review of the Constitution, but would ask the Council to reflect on a growing issue that many residents and councillors are beginning to notice. Over recent years, we've seen the emergence of numerous improvement boards, oversight boards, programme boards, task and finish groups. Some undoubtedly perform valuable work, but many operate outside the formal committee structure that this Constitution carefully sets out. The Constitution rightly provides for public meetings, published reports, recorded decisions and scrutiny. The question is not whether these boards should exist. The question is how democratically accountability is maintained when governance activity moves away from the formal decision-making framework. If a board is monitoring major improvement programmes, directing work streams, overseeing risk or influencing policy development, then councillors and residents should be able to understand its role. More importantly, they should be able to see the outcomes being delivered and the risks being managed. If an improvement board exists, what has improved? If an oversight board exists, what risks has it identified and mitigated? Transparency builds trust. Openness strengthens decision-making. Scrutiny can only scrutinise what it can see, and it cannot assess effectiveness if outcomes and risks are not routinely reported. As we review the Constitution, I ask that consideration be given to strengthening provisions around informal board and governance structures, including clear reporting lines, publication of terms of reference, visibility of outcomes, oversight of key risks and greater transparency regarding their work. Good governance is not simply about making the right decisions. It's about ensuring people can see how those decisions are shaped, what risks are being managed and whether the promised improvements are actually being delivered. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mrs. Buckingham, for your contribution. Public questions. Councillors, we have received one public question. The question is from Mr. Nick Shaw. Mr. Shaw is unable to attend tonight's meeting, so in accordance with Rule 16.11 of the Meeting Procedures Rules, the question will be noted as read and we shall proceed with the agenda. The response to Mr. Shaw's question will be published in the minutes of the meeting. We'll move on in the meantime. Section 3, petitions. I can confirm that no petitions qualify for this no petitions qualifying for this meeting have been received. Agenda item 8, executive presentations. There are no executive presentations for this meeting. Therefore, we move to agenda item 9. Agenda item 9, Constitution Update 2026. Please may I see the Chair of the Democracy and Standards Committee, Councillor Jonathan Cavetta, to present this report.
Thank you, Chair. As the Chairman of the Democracy and Standards Committee, I am pleased to move the recommendation to approve and adopt the revised Constitution set out at Appendix A. Our Constitution is one of the Council's most important documents. It provides the framework for how we make decisions, how we are held to account. Bear with me. How residents can engage with us, and how we ensure that our governance arrangements remain lawful, transparent and effective. As council members, we have a collective responsibility to ensure that it remains up to date and fit for purpose. The review before council is not proposing fundamental change to our governance model. Rather, it is a comprehensive refresh which improves clarity, accessibility and consistency, whilst ensuring that the Constitution reflects current legislation, organisational arrangements and established practices. The changes include improved formatting and navigation, clearer delegation, updated protocols, strengthened governance arrangements and amendments to deadlines and procedures to support the more effective administration of council business. The review also recognises that as a Democracy and Standards Committee, we will look at focused sections of the Constitution as part of our work programme for 2026-27. This work marks the first steps in establishing a regular process of review of our Constitution with an annual report to be presented to Council each year. When changes need to be made, which require council approval and cannot fall within the annual review reporting, these will be brought to council with recommendations from the Democracy and Standards Committee, informed by the work of our Constitution Working Group. This review has been undertaken over the past year, and I would like to thank all members who have engaged in this process, including our members of the Constitution Working Group and Democracy and Standards Committee. I would also like to place on record my thanks to the Monitoring Officer and her officers who have supported this extensive review. Chair, I therefore formally move that Council approve and adopt the revised Constitution as set out in Appendix A. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Cavetta. Please may I see Councillor Martin Griffiths to second this item.
Delighted to second this item and reserve the right to speak, Chair.
So we're now open for debate. Councillor Fairhall.
I'd just like to speak in support of the proposals, in particular 5.13 in the papers and the proposals regarding the petition scheme, which is actually proposed to come out of the Constitution, but the proposals to adjust the requirements for the number of signatures required, I think is a positive development. Eastern on the Hill will take no appreciation of the fact, but they submitted a petition last year and found once the signatures were looked at, that they fell shy by a short number of the target at that point, because people who had signed it, who live literally just across the border, because Eastern on the Hill borders Lincolnshire, Leicestershire and Peterborough, found that those at that point weren't counted. So I really appreciate the response that we've now made to adjust the number of signatures that are required and state more clearly the fact that signatures that from people from across the border may be considered as legitimate towards a petition. So that in particular I would want to endorse and support very much so. But having been a member of the Constitution Working Group and Democracy and Standards, having worked through this work, I would endorse the whole lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hakewell.
Thank you, and congratulations on your elevation to chair. I'd like to thank Councillor Buckingham for her comments, which I take to heart. She was an assiduous scrutineer in the previous term of this authority and did a very good job at that time. The Constitution has always been, and still is, a good read, even at Christmas time. I congratulate the councillors and officer colleagues, for creating the updates. Not the most exciting task, but crucial to the work of the council, and reiterate Councillor Carvetta's point about the work of the monitoring officer. I have to just put in one small area, and that is I'm looking forward to further work on the Constitution, which will, I hope, result in increasing the number of members on corporate scrutiny that allows all groups on the council to be members of that committee, not least for the time when we scrutinise the budget. And I can see the monitoring officer smiling. She probably knew I was going to make that point, but I'm looking forward to it. But well done. I shall continue to enjoy reading the Constitution.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to recognise the work that's gone into this update in modernising our Constitution. And there are a number of very sensible updates in here. And generally speaking, I am very supportive of anything that helps us as a council work more efficiently. If we can make officers' jobs a little bit easier and free up some of their time to focus on delivering more improved services to our residents, then that is something that we should all support. There is just one small concern that I would just like to raise. In the updated Constitution, it brings forward the deadline for members of the public to register to speak by half a working day or 5 hours. That may not seem significant, but for example, for our full council papers today, we received them on Wednesday at 5 p.m. last week. The current deadline to register to speak was on 5 p.m. on Monday this week, giving just 5 days. In this time, a resident needs to first know an agenda has been released, to read the agenda, to read 370 pages as in this agenda, to decide if they want to speak, to prepare a speech, and to then actually register. And that is already a very small window, and that will now be reduced by another half a day. This would be multiplied over the following 60 or so public meetings that we hold each year. Councillors also lose the same amount of time on motions, but given our impeccable timekeeping, I think we'll manage all with that just fine. But my concern really is about residents. I'd like to see more residents participating in our meetings, not fewer. I know that we want to be an accessible and transparent council, and I just worry that even a relatively small reduction in the available time could unintentionally reduce public participation. But I also completely accept that that may not have any noticeable impact whatsoever, but even more, we just don't quite know yet. So rather than proposing an amendment to this item this evening, I was just wondering if I could ask the Chair of the Democracy and Standards Committee whether he would be open to commit to reviewing this change in the appropriate forum in the right time, or at the very least be open to working myself on it in the coming months. I think it could be quite a simple comparison of average participation levels with previous years, just to see if there's been any noticeable change in the number of people registering to speak on our various public meetings. And if there's been no impact, then that's excellent, and we can all be rest assured that we've delivered an efficiency without affecting any public engagement. But if we do see public participation fall, then at least we'll have the evidence to consider whether or not we'll need to revisit it. So I just wanted to say thank you, and I think it's been a good piece of work, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor David Brackenbury.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Councillor Williams. Indeed, I'm pleased you raised that point, and I do think it's worth the Chair of Democracy and Standards and the Constitutional Review Body keeping that in mind. Outcomes are important, so if there is an issue, then I agree it should be kept under review. My point, Chair, was of course not so much on that, but it's also one thing that did not appear in the Constitutional Review, which you will observe was the any changes to the structure of planning committees we had. Now, I know we had an issue with that, which was debated a few months ago, and we resolved to keep the status quo with the planning committees, which is fine. My point is that, of course, we are in the hands of central government, and government is about to make some fairly far-reaching changes, both in terms of a national planning policy framework, but also in terms of governance. And so by October, it is very likely that there will be mandated changes to the democratic planning structure in this and other authorities. And I'm afraid it is likely that that is going to lead to a lessening of democratic accountability and a more strong emphasis on centralised imposition of planning targets and strategies from central government. So I'm just making the point that it is important for every member of this council, because we're all ward members, and planning is something that affects everybody in this room, just to keep a very close eye on. It's going to be a very interesting ride. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fedorovich.
Thank you, Chair. I also, with regards to this topic, I just really want to thank the officers involved. I know how much work has gone into this, and people have been working tirelessly on improving and updating the Constitution. Also, I'm very lucky to be on the Democracy and Standards panel and part of that process. So one thing I really wanted just to speak on, sort of aligned with my colleague as well, I don't really need to speak on the vast majority of changes because I've been in the room and we've been very much in favour of all of the changes brought forward tonight, including the petition change, really, really big and helpful. However, some of the comments that have previously been made at some of those Democracy and Standards meetings haven't been accounted for in the minutes. I was just wondering if I could sort of restate those for the record today, if that would be all right, and just make sure that they're sort of accounted for. One of the key things, my colleague has already kind of covered it quite well, in terms of the worry of squeezing that time to register for members of the public. We really need to be encouraging more people to get involved. And the thing that came out as the reason why we were doing that was because it's difficult for officers to manage to collate all of those speakers within the time frame. So one of the things I raised at that meeting, which deemed to be noted in the room as something that could be helpful, is having a form that could collate them automatically and automated. This wasn't noted, and also I think it just needs to be something, if we're going to come back and review this in the future, we always want to be looking at doing things in the most efficient way, working harder, not smarter, smarter, not harder. Type thing. So I think it's very, very important that we look at technology specifically as ways to improve the way that we're working. So that's one of the really key things that I wanted to mention, and so important that we encourage members of the public to engage in our meetings. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Howell.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations on your appointment as well. I'm always happy to support updates to our Constitution if it improves the way that this council operates and also supports our residents. I have a couple of questions and points that I would hopefully like to raise, and maybe the Chair of Democracy and Standards, along with the monitoring officer, will address these when it comes to the review moving forward. So, first is, what safeguards and review mechanism will apply where a motion on notice is rejected by the monitoring officer in consultation with the chair, and will the councillor submitting the motion be provided with written reasons? Secondly, Chair, I note that the petition scheme is being removed from the Constitution, with the live version instead being maintained on the Council's website and subject to review through the Democracy and Standards Committee. This is not necessarily wrong, but it does mean that an important democratic process is no longer contained within the Constitution itself. And I'd like to understand who has the power to amend the petition scheme once it's outside the Constitution, and what formal approval or consultation is required. And also, Chair, for my final point, so given that the Constitution does not appear to expressly provide for the election of a vice chair, where the existing vice chair is elected as chair, will the planned 26-27 focused review of the meeting procedure rules specifically address the procedure for filling a consequential vacancy where the election of one office holder creates a vacancy in another. Sorry, very complex. I would suggest that it's good practice that when these circumstances arise, we look to amend our constitution accordingly to take these situations into account. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. I have no other councillors registered to speak, so I will now invite the mover and a seconder.
If you go back to Councillor Griffiths, because he reserved his right to speak.
Okay. Councillor Griffiths, you reserved your right to speak. Would you wish to do so?
Thank you very much for that, and some very interesting points raised. And I'm sure with regard to Councillor Fairhall's point about the petition, that isn't the only example, and there may be other examples, hopefully not too many. Councillor Hakewell, what he doesn't tell you is, as well as reading the Constitution at Christmas, he also compares it to the previous Constitution during the New Year celebrations. So I think, Jim, you need to get out a little bit more in the festive season. A little bit frustrated that some of the points that have been raised didn't really need to wait until full council to be raised with the chairman of Democracy and Standards. I'm sure we can handle those either during those meetings, fed into members of all the political groups, but there are some good points raised, and I'm sure we'll come back to those in due course. Thank you.
Councillor Carvetta, as a mover, you'll be the final speaker. Sorry. Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Hakewell. This is on our forward plan to review scrutiny. Councillor Williams recognise that this is something the committee will review on public participation for the timings. The Planning Committee's delegation is on the agenda for August, and the forward plan for Council in September to adopt the change ahead of the deadline by 31st of October. Thank you, Councillor Brackenbury, for your continued work on this area and bringing that to the meeting this evening. Councillor Fedorovich, thank you very much for your work on the committee. Councillor Howell, thank you for your valuable feedback, which we will, of course, take into our work programme with Democracy and Standards Committee. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to the vote. Please use your electronic voting buttons, which will appear on your microphone unit once the vote has commenced. You'll have 30 seconds to vote.
Voting has commenced. Voting has now ended. 56 yes, 3 abstain and 0 for no. Thank you.
The recommendation is carried. Agenda item 10, motions on notice. Thank you, councillors. We have 3 motions on notice for consideration at this meeting, as printed on your agenda papers. Please note that I expect all contributions to be concise, and please respect the time limits that apply. Okay. We now move to motion 1. Please may I see Councillor Helen Harrison to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm proposing this motion to fly Ukraine's flag on their Independence Day on the 24th of August from our council buildings because I think it's important, and I'll explain why. However, I would first like to make it very clear that this is not a hostile motion. It's not an attack on reform, and it is not an attack on their flag policy. I have no issues at all with the flag policy, and I would very much like to see us all come together to support this motion. I would also like to address early what I believe will be the main argument against my motion, namely that exceptions to the flag flying policy should not be made on a case-by-case basis. This was the argument made by a spokesperson to the Northamptonshire Telegraph when this motion was published back in June. And I believe that this argument doesn't hold water because there have already been exceptions made to the policy on a case-by-case basis. The VJ Day flag was flown last August to mark its 80th anniversary, and the Armed Forces Day flag was flown on the 28th of June last year and the 22nd of June this year. Both exceptions, and both worthy exceptions that I think we would all support. I would like to show that flying the Ukraine flag on Ukraine Independence Day this year is also a worthy exception. Russia invaded Ukraine on the 24th of February 2022, unleashing the largest and deadliest European war since the Second World War. The war has now been raging for 4 years, 4 months, and 3 weeks, longer even than the First World War. Ukraine's brave men and women are fighting for their independence and freedom. They are laying down their lives to stop Russia's aggressive imperialism, which would be unlikely to stop with Ukraine. Here in the UK, there is cross-party political agreement that we should do everything we can to help Ukraine prevail, with our Prime Minister in one of his last acts going to Ukraine today. And there is agreement cooperation with our European allies as well. That support, financial, logistical, intelligence and training, is not only given because we believe that we should help Ukraine with their own existential threat, but because we understand the increased threat to the rest of Europe if Russia should prevail. And that is where I get to the importance of us making a worthy exception to the flag policy by flying Ukraine's flag on Ukraine Independence Day. Their blood and their sacrifice is keeping us safe right across Europe, the UK, and here in Northamptonshire. I believe we should take this moment to honour them and their sacrifice in the same way that we have honoured our own armed forces and those who fought to end the Second World War in Japan. I urge you all to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. May I see Councillor Wendy Brackenbury to second the motion?
Thank you, Chair. I'm very pleased to be able to second this motion. We as a nation have a lot to be grateful to Ukraine for. They are the ones sacrificing their men and women against a known adversary of both ourselves and our allies. What is happening and unfolding in Ukraine, in the occupied territories, will set a global precedent of what it means to have integrity of sovereign borders and national democracy. So on Monday, the 24th of August, Ukraine Independence Day, the very least we can do as an authority is to show solidarity with the country and its people by flying the Ukraine flag. A country not just fighting for its own survival, but also the protection and right to sovereign borders across the Western world. Thank you, Chair. So I hope we get full support from Council this evening to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak on this motion? Councillor Fedorovich.
Thank you very much, Chair. I wish to support this motion, not just as a councillor, but as someone with Ukrainian heritage. For many of us here, life has returned to normal. The war is no longer on the front pages every day, but for the people of Ukraine, the war has never stopped. The bombing, the fear, the loss and the uncertainty continues. Life has been fundamentally changed for millions of people. This is deeply personal to me and the many Ukrainians who are now part of the Northamptonshire community who have come here to find safety at a terrible time. I wanted to share a couple of instances that might help share what is happening right now. I have one cousin who lives in Lviv. She told me about bombs being dropped close enough to her home that she can feel the vibrations through the walls. Her little sister has had to hide in the bathtub many, many nights. She has lost friends to missile attacks. She tries to carry on with her normal job as a software developer while dealing with the rolling blackouts and the constant threat of air raids. Another cousin lives in Kiev and works as a nurse. Her hospital has, in many ways, become part of the front line in this war, caring for those whose lives have been torn apart by this conflict. This is the reality of what people are facing right now, and I'm very, very grateful to have this motion come forward today. Flying the Ukrainian flag on Ukrainian Independence Day will not end the war, but it will send a simple and powerful message that we have not forgotten the people of Ukraine, and that we stand in solidarity with them and that their struggle still matters. There is so much more that we can do as a community, but this is one meaningful gesture that I know that the Ukrainian community, both here and in Ukraine, will greatly appreciate. I hope colleagues from across the chamber will support this motion today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Chris Munday.
Thank you, Chair. I want to begin by being absolutely clear. This administration stands with the people of Ukraine. We condemn wholeheartedly Putin's illegal invasion. We condemn the suffering caused to innocent men, women and children. We recognise the courage of the Ukrainian people as they defend their country, their freedom and their right to live in peace. We also stand with Ukrainian residents here in Northamptonshire, many of whom have built new lives and become valued members of our communities. But the question before us tonight is not whether we support Ukraine, because we do. The question is whether the Council should make an exception to its current flag policy and fly the Ukrainian flag on Council buildings for one day only. I understand the feelings behind this motion. I understand why members see it as a visible sign of support. However, the Council has a flag policy for a reason. It gives us a clear and consistent approach. It also avoids the Council having to decide, case by case, which national and international causes should be marked by flying a flag. And I just want to pick up on the point raised by Councillor Harrison regarding the two flags she mentioned in her introduction. The flying of these specific flags is actually already contained within our flag policy. So once we make an exception, it becomes harder to refuse future requests. Some of those requests may be widely supported, others may be more controversial or divisive. That does not mean we should be silent or do nothing. There are practical ways we can support Ukrainians living in Northamptonshire. We can help people access housing, services and advice. We can work with community groups and volunteers. We can support families who have come here seeking safety. The practical support can make a real difference to people's lives. I do not dismiss the importance of symbols. Symbols can matter, but a one-day gesture should not replace practical action. I do not believe we should set aside a clear council policy to achieve it. Chair, I support Ukraine. I support the Ukrainian people. I condemn Putin's illegal invasion and I support meaningful help for Ukrainians living in our area. However, I cannot support making a one-day exception to the Council's flag policy. For those reasons, and with respect to Councillor Harrison, I will not support the motion this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kirk Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations again on your election. I'm going to keep this brief because in truth there's not an awful lot to say after that fantastic speech by Councillor Mundy. But a little over a year ago, this council adopted a flag policy. It was clear, it's unambiguous, and it deliberately did not include provisions for making exceptions. I don't accept the premise that the flags mentioned by Councillor Harrison are exceptions. We should not depart from the policy for political requests. The flags raised... Thank you for the interruption. The purpose of having a policy is that it's applied consistently. If every time a worthy cause comes along, and it is a worthy cause, we debate it because it should be an exception to the policy, then we no longer have a policy. We have a series of ad hoc decisions. I don't believe that's good governance, and it's certainly not what the council intended when it adopted the policy last year. This motion serves no practical purpose, I'm afraid, and unfortunately it invites us to ignore our own policy, and for those reasons I can't support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor David Brackenbury.
My apologies, my slightly intemperate remark a second ago. Apologies, Councillor Harrison. Yeah, well, if the flag policy is as strict as that, there is one quite simple solution, Chair. That is to change the flag policy. Let's consider what actually happened. In February 2022, Russia invaded the Ukraine with all its might, with armour, with aircraft, with God knows what, missiles and so forth. They did the first land invasion by a substantial sovereign power in Europe since a chap called Hitler did it some years before. And Putin, yeah, he's going to be in Kiev in a week. It's all going to be over. There was this 50-mile-long column of armoured vehicles moving on Kiev. It was all going to be over. And President Zelensky said, no, I don't want to ride. I don't want to be helicoptered out. I want ammunition. And here we are. As Councillor Helen Harrison observed, it's been longer than the First World War and has many similarities to the First World War in that it's a complete military stalemate. As Ukraine stuck up for itself, they also defended Western Europe. Because if Ukraine had folded within a week, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland could have come afterwards. It is not symbolic, colleagues. It's not symbolic. This is really important, that we demonstrate our support for Ukraine. I agree with Councillor Mundy, of course. Provide all the support that we do provide, and provide all the sort of speeches and stuff that says, yeah, we sort of support you, but we won't let you fly the flag. So, in conclusion, Chair, just amend the flag policy. It's not that difficult. You've got time to do it, and it would mean so much to the communities of the Ukraine and indeed Eastern Europe. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Chair. Whilst I wholeheartedly support Ukraine in their struggle to maintain their sovereign independence and wish that much more tangible support had been given to the Ukrainian government and people much earlier in this conflict, I can't support this motion. I fear that in this motion we are veering outside the bounds of the legal competency of a unitary authority, and I would respectfully request that the Democracy and Standards Committee, in conjunction with the monitoring officer, revisit the topic of what is and what is not permissible business that can be laid before full council. I fear that agreeing with this motion will open up a Pandora's box of foreign policy issues which this council simply should not be getting involved in. There will also no doubt be a conveyor belt of further requests to fly other national and non-national flags outside council offices, consuming valuable officer and member time and resources. On a very personal note, some of you will be well aware that I have Russian family and friends. I also have Ukrainian friends. I do not believe that as many Ukrainians make their way down into the Kiev and Kharkov metro stations this evening, that they are going to be glued to watching this on YouTube. It is not an issue for us as a council, and quite frankly, we should be concentrating both as a local authority and a national government on giving the Ukrainian people and government real, tangible support. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everybody. And congratulations, Chair, on your elevation this evening. Thank you to Councillors Howson and Brackenbury for their motion requesting that the Ukrainian flag is flown for just one day next month on the Ukrainian Independence Day. Perhaps like others in this room, I was very proud to be able to host refugees from Ukraine in the immediate aftermath of Russia's full-scale, illegal and wholly unprovoked invasion in February 2022. And I'm therefore proud to say that I fully support the motion this evening. We all know that flying flags is a highly demonstrative act, and agreeing to raise the flag of Ukraine on their Independence Day would be a public declaration that we stand fully and firmly behind the people of Ukraine as they continue to fight for their homeland and existence as an independent, sovereign nation state. After the agenda papers and this motion were published for the previous scheduled council meeting last month, I read various quotes, one of which that Councillor Howson has mentioned, that said that the NNC administration fully supports the people of Ukraine. Fully supporting the people of Ukraine, though, only holds true if we are doing everything that we can to show that support, and that would include flying their flag on their Independence Day. If this motion is not agreed this evening, then we're not fully supporting the people of Ukraine, are we? And anybody that says that we are is simply factually incorrect, since we wouldn't be doing everything that we can to show that full support. And if that is the case and this motion isn't agreed this evening, then personally I think that will reflect very poorly indeed on this chamber. Having actually read this council's flag protocol, the motion rightly focuses on the request being an exemption to reform UK's flag flying policy, since there is nothing in our council's protocol, unless I'm mistaken, and contrary to what Councillors Monday and Howson have said, that would prevent this council flying the Ukrainian flag on their Independence Day. Agreeing to this motion and flying their flag for that one day would be entirely consistent with the NNC flag protocol. And if that isn't the case, then the monitoring and legal officer should say so. Therefore, and as mentioned, this motion has my full support, and I thank Councillors Howson and Brackenbury for bringing it to the chamber this evening. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Towns.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we've got 3 number flagpoles outside each of our regional council chambers. So why not demonstrate our commitment to support the people of Ukraine for one day? There's millions of Ukrainian refugees spread across Europe, about 120,000 in the UK alone. And in Northamptonshire, we've housed about 1,000 Ukrainian refugees, and some work for this council. NNC has supported them with sponsors, homes, finance, employment, schooling and well-being.
Ukraine gained independence from Russia following a referendum which saw 92% voting in favour. The UK is also a signatory to the Budapest Memorandum, along with the USA and Russia, giving security assurances to the Ukraine. But Ukraine finds itself under grave threat and stands as a barrier between a free Europe and a draconian Russia. So what does Russia represent? War censorship laws, 15 years prison penalties, foreign agents laws, leaving those seen to engage with overseas organised agents subject to harassment, undesirable organisations law with 6-year prison penalties, LGBT extremism and propaganda laws effectively outlawing any public expression of LGBT identity, the discrimination of some decriminalisation of some domestic violence against women and children, hardly signing up to the Women's Charter, is it? Restrictions of journalistic freedoms. Journalists have been murdered in Russia, and they've squashed all political opposition. War crimes against civilians, hospitals and infrastructure have all been inflicted on the people of Ukraine, and children have been kidnapped and deported back to Russia from Ukraine. Ukraine stands between us and this authoritarian power. The least we can do is fly their flag on one of our many flagpoles for just one day in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hall.
Is that on? Yeah. Thank you, Chair. We were elected to support vulnerable residents, deliver local services, and finally start to tackle the road repairs that have been left neglected for decades by previous administrations. We were not elected to conduct foreign policy. That's a matter for those in Westminster, not for those in this chamber. I appreciate that some members may feel strongly about international affairs, but I suspect most residents are rather more interested in whether their potholes are being fixed than whether NNC is signalling its views thousands of miles away. For those reasons, I will be voting against the motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cohoon.
Thank you, Chair. Rather strange reason to make a decision of a political nature, but there you go, it takes all sorts. Firstly, Chair, and I'm going to leave the conflict current in Ukraine aside. It's been very, very well covered by all speakers. My question to the leadership would be, why have a flag policy in the first blooming place? And there's just no logic to it to me. If you want to have a flag policy, have one, but show a bit of flexibility and a bit of acceptance of other people within your flag policy. For example, the LGBT community, trans community, and so on and so forth, because these are parts, these people and these groups are part of society. And, you know, refusing to acknowledge them isn't going to change anything. But anyway, a flag is a visual display of solidarity. But as I say, I don't want to go into the conflict thing. But Councillor Towns mentions the draconian oppression of people in Russia, which one can't ignore, politically or not. It's absolutely appalling the way people are treated. And what we can be doing here by displaying and flying the Ukrainian flag is our abhorrence of the Russian invasion and its consequences. We can be showing the Ukrainian people in our authority that we stand with them, that we are their friends. We can acknowledge our belief in diversity, equality, inclusion, and the acceptance of people in dire, dire need. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Duddridge.
It's
quite disappointing to hear this being called a political statement. It's a much bigger issue than just a political statement, but surely the point would have been that removing them initially was the political statement. They've flown for a year, longer than a year, sorry, prior to this. So again, it would be equally disappointing to have it determined based on whether or not it's only going to fly for a single day when it was up every day of the year prior to May 2025. Moral support is incalculable. The symbolism that we are showing to our Ukrainian residents is that you are amongst friends and allies when you're here. We have your backs. You have our solidarity, our support, our unity. Ukrainian residents who live here now will be reporting back to loved ones back home that our continued support is still there. They're not going to need to watch a meeting to see that. They're going to hear it from their family members. We also have Ukrainian vulnerable residents here, and they too matter. So this isn't the first motion that's come before this council that has crossed into Westminster links, so it's disappointing to have that used as a reason to shut the conversation down.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Pengelly.
Yeah, could I thank each and every Reform councillor for getting up today and saying that they care about Ukraine, because I think you do. But one way of doing it is to fly the flag to show support. Councillor Monday said, I think it was Councillor Monday said, if you do it for one, you do it for all. We've got a flag policy in place now, so if you do it for one, if you want to do it for anybody else, you've got to bring it back here and put an argument forward. Let's hope America don't invade Greenland, because if they do, we'll be asking for a flag for Greenland to go up, won't we? That's what we're doing, but let's hope that doesn't happen. Councillor Hall talks about this is foreign policy. It's not foreign policy. I've been helping somebody from Ukraine for the last 3 years who moved to Corby after a flat got bombed. I've spoke to her yesterday and she was in tears because her sister lives in Kiev and they're being bombed to oblivion right now. The way we can show our support is to raise a flag for one day. That's how you can do it. You'll care about reform. You've said that. Let's do it. It's a no-brainer. Let's do this. Get the flag up and show the people of Ukraine we care about them, each and every single one of us.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gibbs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have two more motions on the agenda tonight, and I hope the next two motions, which are relevant to the people of Northamptonshire, get as much animation from the chamber as this one. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Whitrow.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make a slight point of order. The war in Ukraine started in February 2014. It did not start when you from Crimea. Thanks for interrupting. I mean, I've pushed my button for you to.
Councillors, please address any questions through the chair.
Thank you, Chair. On March the 18th, 2014, the Russians annexed completely the Crimea, which was, up until then, part of Ukraine. This council and the borough council before and everything else, for those 12 years, didn't raise a flag. We supported it militarily, but nothing else. At the moment, I've got constituents at home who want to understand important things that are going on. We have a policy for a reason. But if you're going to talk about the war in Ukraine, please get the dates right. It started in February 2014. And for 12 years, those that were in power didn't do anything until 2022. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. I have no other councillors registered to speak. So I now invite the mover of the motion to close the debate.
Well, thank you. Let's start with the positive. Thank you so much to all councillors who spoke so passionately in this debate in support of this motion. You all raised excellent points and really highlighted exactly why it's so important that we make sure that Northamptonshire, Ukrainian people in Northamptonshire, but beyond, know that we here in this chamber support them, have them in our thoughts and care about them. I'm really, really gutted by the comments that have been made that were not in support. I made very clear that this was not a partisan motion. I made it very clear that I was not making this motion to have a go at anybody or to embarrass anybody or to make a political point. I was not. But the political points that have been made back have been pretty ghastly. And I'm just thoroughly disappointed that this has descended into a debate of this poor quality. It does mean that I have to come back on some of the points that were made. So firstly, by flying the flag of Ukraine, I, of course, could not possibly have been suggesting that we didn't support people in a practical way who have come from Ukraine. I think that's pretty damn obvious. Back in 2022, when the land invasion of Ukraine took place, I was the executive member for adults' health and well-being, and I oversaw, with officers, the Ukraine Home Scheme. I think I know how much work this council has done to help the people of Ukraine who had to flee that war. And that is why this is not a national issue. It is a Northamptonshire issue. I also take exception to the idea that Council adopted a flag policy. Council did not. The new administration imposed a flag policy. As I say, I have no issue whatsoever with that flag policy, but Council did not adopt a policy. We have never had a policy presented to us. And by the way, I have searched for the flag policy many times on the Northamptonshire Council website, and I have never, ever been able to find it. So if I am incorrect about the exceptions, that's because there's no way I could find out, because I cannot find a flag policy. So I think, you know, the tone of this debate of those opposing has just been so utterly disgraceful. I came here in good faith, and I feel just incredibly sad. And again, I desperately didn't want this to become a political issue. I desperately didn't. But because it's now been made into one, when I sit down, I'm going to ask for a recorded vote. I wasn't going to, but I will now.
The vote will be recorded. Thank you. We will now need a move to a vote. Please use your electronic voting buttons, which appear on your microphone unit. Once the vote has commenced, you will have 30 seconds to vote. Democratic Services will announce the results of the vote.
Voting has commenced. Ten seconds remaining. Ended. 21 yes, 4 abstain and 32 no.
To confirm, the motion has been lost. There has been a request to, if the councillors would agree to have a short... Sorry, go ahead.
I think I saw Councillor Jay Lumsden come up there twice. That's invalidation of votes.
No.
That won't be counted. Can you double check?
It's council.
There's two councillors of that surname. It has been suggested, as we've now been running, to have a short break. If we can do that and take 5 minutes and be back in our seats as soon as possible. Thank you all. We move on now to motion 2. Please may I see Councillor Kelly Dudridge to move the motion.
I'm on? Okay. Thank you for allowing me to propose this motion today. This isn't just about empty shops. This is about renewing our confidence in town centres and having the confidence that this council will use every tool it has available to support that process. The government gave this council new powers some time ago, and that's always welcome, but powers alone will not regenerate a high street. People need to understand how those powers will be used to serve them and their communities, what progress is being made and where opportunities exist to get involved. This is why the emphasis of the motion isn't just on action, but on openness. I understand why Wellingborough has been selected as the first pilot based on the vacancy data. Starting where the challenge is greatest is the right approach. However, what will be the roadmap for the rest of Northamptonshire going forward? Before submitting this motion, I sought to understand the wider rollout, what the wider rollout would look like, but found information was quite difficult to gather. That is precisely why this motion has asked for a clear published strategy and regular updates so that businesses, town councils, community organisations and most importantly our residents can see how and when these new powers will be used. I'm regularly asked for updates and unable to provide an answer. Information seemed to flow a little more freely, though, on receipt of this motion. If a local business owner, a community organisation, a town council or a resident wants to know what's happening to an empty property in Wellingborough for now, that information should not be buried in committee papers or become something people only hear about once a decision's already been made. There should be a clear process, clear points of contact and clear information about what stage each part of the process has reached. Equally, we need genuine partnership. Our town and parish councils know their communities best. Business organisations understand challenges facing the high streets. Community groups often have innovative ideas for bringing vacant spaces back into productive use. And bringing all these voices together early will produce better outcomes than working in isolation. A published policy with a visible programme of works and regular progress updates will allow us as councillors to hold this body accountable for that process. Residents should be able to see not only our ambitions, but the progress we are making against them too. Transparency builds trust, encourages investment and gives community confidence that regeneration is happening with them, not simply to them. This motion is deliberately meant to be hopefully practical and not designed to criticise the work that's already underway. That process has already started and we recognise that. It is so that we can organise ourselves in a way that's coordinated, collaborative and visible to the public so that these new powers deliver the maximum benefit across all of Northants. Our high streets remain at the heart of our towns and the government recognises and supports all efforts to see them restored. They deserve a strategy that is open, ambitious and accountable, and I hope that all members will support this motion and hopefully Councillor Gibbs is right that we can have a nice debate on this one too.
Thank you, Councillor. Please may I see Councillor William Cahoon to second the motion.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief here, Chair. My colleague has given quite a comprehensive explanation to quite a comprehensive written piece, so I won't add much to that. What I would point out to Council is that the last 20 odd 30 years we've been seeing something of a revolution in the high street caused by various factors, online shopping, technological advances, etc., leading to closure of banks, building societies, other outlets, shopping habits changing. I was in Glasgow recently and noticed that almost all the department stores I grew up around had all gone. Smaller units are required. The supermarkets, of course, are put out of business, people like butchers and bakers, etc. So I think we should be looking at this sort of thing and seeing how we can keep up with the changes in society in general and how we can improve our local town centres. And I think particularly, and I'm not knocking any particular town centre, but I find Kettering and Wellingborough have both lost a great deal of liveliness, if you like, through changes in shopping practice. That's all I have to say, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak on the motion? Councillor Brackenbury.
Thank you, Chair. And you know, I'm grateful for the sentiments that underlie this motion. And you know, as before the administration change, my portfolio area was growth and regeneration. And you're absolutely right that our town centres are going through a step change. Large-scale retail is now not so much a thing in our town centres. People are shopping much more online, and who doesn't have the pleasure of an Amazon parcel rocking up at the door? People are going to substantial supermarkets, out-of-town shopping centres, Rushton Lakes maybe, and other places. And so to have as much information and use as many tools as we have to see where the town centres are going, how they are going to develop, and how they are going to reimagine themselves in a changing environment, in a changing world. Perhaps going more for hospitality, for going more for specialist retails, you know, that sometimes meet needs that maybe the Tesco's and the Rushton Lakes do not meet, and trying to work a programme that coordinates everything that's going on in Northamptonshire is, I think, a good thing. Of course, we know resources are limited. We know that there is got to be emphasis in some areas and not others, but nevertheless, we have 4 substantial towns in Northamptonshire: Wellingborough, Kettering, Corby, and of course Rushton. And we do need to make sure that none of these substantial town centres, not to mention the smaller towns as well, but none of these are left behind. So as much evidence gathering, as much work as can be amassed to get the best evidence base for the future of our town centres is, I think, really valuable stuff. It was work we were doing back in the previous administration. I'm absolutely sure it's work that is continuing, but we do have tools, you know, community right to buy, high street rental auctions and so forth. Yes, they are there, and indeed they are being used, but just let's keep an accurate monitoring of those mechanisms and of other mechanisms to bring a bit of investment and a bit of sparkle back into our town centres. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kirk Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. And rather predictably, like everyone else, I want to see thriving town centres, particularly within Northamptonshire. There's nothing wrong with that objective at all. But the reason I won't be supporting this motion is much more simple than that. Work that this motion asks the executive to undertake is actually already underway, as has been noted. The council joined the government's high street rental auction early adapter programme last year. Officers spent the past year preparing for the new legislation, and as we speak, there's already a public consultation on the proposed designation of Wellingborough Town Centre. That consultation closes this week, and the outcome is due to come to executive next month. This isn't something that we need a motion to start because it's already happening. Equally, the council already operates the assets of community value process and the community right to buy, so that's already part of the work. And more broadly, and with respect, town centre regeneration doesn't begin and end with the high street rental auctions. The Wellingborough Town Master Plan, which is due before executive next month and will get our full support. We're already looking at how that can be expanded elsewhere across Northamptonshire. So whilst I completely agree with the intention of this motion, I don't believe it adds anything to what's already being delivered, and for that reason I won't be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fedorovic.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm very grateful for this motion on high street rental auctions and for this being brought to the fore. I've been working extensively with town centre businesses and estate agents to try and fill venues that have been left empty, in some cases for well over a decade. These vacant buildings are not just unused spaces, they're degrading our town centres and making them feel unwelcoming and in decline. This is something that we all know, but I just wanted to give sort of one clear example in Kettering. The old M&S building, its long-term vacancy has been a key factor in the decline of the town centre, and filling even that venue alone would bring people back into the heart of the town, increase footfall and help surrounding businesses, and help restore confidence in the area. Kettering Town Council has also allocated funding to help regenerate our high streets, but we have a key responsibility as NNC to influence on this issue. Labour has, of course, introduced the high street rentals auctions as a mechanism for councils to repurpose and bring these buildings back into use. And I know some progress has already been made on this, on which our council regeneration team has been doing some really great work progressing. It may take some time for us to fully understand how to effectively use this new mechanism, but this motion is a really valuable opportunity for us to reflect on how we can do more and utilise the tools that we have available to us. And I would like to urge this council to utilise this opportunity with more vigour. I will be supporting this motion today because this is a real opportunity for the council to make a tangible difference to each of our town centres, and it's especially important at a time where community groups are desperately looking for spaces to come together, meet and serve local residents. In particular, the second point, to establish a high street renewal task force, is a suggestion that I think is particularly excellent, as our power as a convener is possibly one of our greatest assets. By bringing empty buildings back into use, we can revitalise our high streets, support local businesses and strengthen our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harrington.
Thank you, Chair. I really can't believe that Councillor Dudridge has thought this motion up on her own, because everything in this motion is already being done anyway. Why do we vote for something which is already in operation? There's a few things which are not quite accurate. It says, I can go through it all actually, but I won't, because I don't want this to take as long as the last motion did. It says here, however, 16 months on and with a new administration in place, there is still progress to be made in utilising these powers. Let me point it out that 16 months ago we didn't physically have the money. So it's not quite as accurate as this motion makes out. And then we go down, where can we go down to? Yeah, we welcome that this matter is returning to the executive in August. But after that decision, we need swift action. Well, I've been very much involved in this, and we are looking to spend initially on Wellingborough. We're not just looking to spend money on Wellingborough. We're going to spend money on Wellingborough and then Kettering, Corby, or not necessarily in that order. And Ruston, yes, I'll put you down for Ruston. And so we are going to do this. But we're looking to spend initially a lot of money in Wellingborough. But we must spend that money wisely, not rush at it and waste that precious money. And it goes on to say, every month of delay is a missed opportunity for our town centres. Well, we could rush into things and spend that money totally unwisely, waste it, and then say, there we are, that's the job done. We don't do that, and I certainly don't do that. Every month of delay is a missed opportunity. No, it's not, because we're working on it, we've been working on it, and we're taking our time, because I would rather take a little bit longer and spend it where it does the most good. That is the point. I can spend that money anywhere you like. But is it going to be spent wisely? Is it going to be spent where that money can be used to make the most effective operation? So I just feel that this was totally, this sounds a bit like Jen Kitchen Route, this.
Time.
It does.
That's the 3 minute mark.
Say that.
Councillors, may I just remind you that we do not name individual councillors who are not here.
I will not mention her name again in this.
This is the time. The time has ended on your talk. Thank you all. Councillor Hakewill.
Thank you, Chairman. How many times do I say that I wasn't going to say anything, but just listening to this particular debate, going back in time, and I do go back over a long time, we used to have Northamptonshire Development Company. In fact, the headquarters were based in Corby, and that was a strategy for what is now Northamptonshire. One of the key parts of that strategy was that Kettering would be the retail centre, and that was signed up to by East Northants, Wellingborough, Kettering and Corby. And lo and behold, what then happens is that East Northants decide that Rushton Lakes is attractive, no doubt for whatever particular reason, and it is attractive if you can actually get in and out in less than an hour just queuing. But what that did was it sucked all the trade out of the town centres of Corby, Kettering, Wellingborough and indeed Northampton. And I find it a bit rich that comments are being made by councillors who formerly sat on East Northants, not to mention any names, but someone did speak, from that point of view. And that is what caused the crisis in retail in Northamptonshire, along with people buying on the internet. Clearly, that has made a very major difference. And in Kettering, when I was leader, we used to have a policy which said, do things you can't do on the internet. And that's why we had things like restaurant quarters. So I did find that a little bit rich. What I also, though, am worried about is within this group, we're talking about a task and finish group. And I really do worry that every time something comes up as an issue, we have another task and finish group, another team of councillors put together, another team of officers to service that. Actually, our problem is finding a viable, sustainable future for Northamptonshire, which is like every one of the other 317 councils in the country. The concept of this, I think, would be a business improvement district based on the town councils. There is an extremely successful one at Brackmills in Northampton. So I won't vote for it because I think it is too vague in its approach and there are other directions it can take. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Chair. I think there's quite a few of us in this chamber who are old enough to remember when the decline in shopping began. I can go back as far as 50, 60 years ago when the first supermarket came into our area. And that supermarket started to sell most of the stuff that all the smaller shops sold. And because of their retail power, they could sell at a reduced price. So what happened even back then, the small shops, the bakers, the butchers, the candlestick makers, all of these people that sold this stuff started to close down because they couldn't compete. And it's the same today. Added to that, sort of online shopping. I mean, Kettering itself, I feel for Kettering. As you walk through it, it is declining like other small towns. And you've got to say to yourself, how will we get people to use these properties to bring back to life and to get people back into the area. The biggest problem we still have then is when people say, oh, I remember when, Mr. Miggins' shop who sold X, he's gone. And I would say to them, well, when did you last buy something out of there? Whether it be a packet of screws or X, Y, and Z. Well, no, the local supermarket sells everything. And if the local supermarket doesn't sell it, then they go online. And everybody here buys something online. You go into town and you try and find it and it's not there anymore. I mean, so where do we go from here? How do we get people to start using these properties and actually bring a product that people want at a price that they can, compete against the larger retailers? It's very difficult. I mean, it would be lovely to have all these little shops again, the fruiterers, the bakers and that, but I mean, we're holding out in sort of certain small areas, but it's just not happening. And I just wish there was a magic bullet, but I don't think there is. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Helen Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank Councillor Duddridge for bringing this motion to Council tonight. I know well how difficult it is to work within the confines of what you can and cannot bring in a motion to this council, and when you passionately care about something, how difficult it is to make it so that it is in order. And I would just like to show my appreciation for Councillor Duddridge's hard work in bringing forth this motion. I'm sad that a member of this council should suggest that she did not do so herself. And I would also suggest that these kinds of comments are probably why there are so few women who put themselves forward for elected roles.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Chair. Let's look at Wellingborough Town Centre and the master plan. This has been very well received by the people of Wellingborough and also the elected members representing Wellingborough and Wellingborough Town Council. It's a first step in a long process, and I hope everybody that's had comments here tonight has taken part in the consultation, because what we learn from Wellingborough on this exercise we will roll out to Kettering, Rushden and other towns in future. Councillor Fedorovich talked about an empty building for over a decade. This administration has done more in 18 months to address our town centres than the previous administration done in 4 years, and I'm proud of that. I was even accused, was I not, of using empty listed buildings in Wellingborough as a vanity project, instead of looking at ways that we can bring footfall back into our town centres. One of the big problems, obviously there was COVID, there's the change in shopping habits, but let's not forget the increased national insurance contributions to businesses is what has cost a lot of businesses going out of business. In Wellingborough alone, in one street, we had 8 branches covering an area of 250 yards. We all, I'm sure most people in this chamber, use their phones for banking these days. So that was always going to be a huge problem. So we've got to look at that as well. So I can't support this motion. The intention is good, but we're already doing it. So, on that basis alone, let's get on with the job. Let's look at ways of improving our town centres, changing the offer, because that's what we've got to do, making them safe, attractive places to visit, tackling the nighttime economy, improve lighting, improving public realm, and that's what we're intending to do. So please support us in that process, starting in Wellingborough and rolling out to our other towns. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that voting on a motion for items of business that are already underway, for me, isn't necessarily a reason to vote against it. If anything, for me, it gives a firm commitment to members of the public that this piece of work is underway, and I think that's quite a nice visible thing for our residents to see. And I think setting up a policy on this item does exactly what Councillor Harrington was worried about. It actually puts a strategy in place so that we don't overspend and we don't rush to spend this money, because it's in our gift to make sure that this is spent well. So yeah, I mean, I agree. Let's be leaders in shaping what our town centres look like. I mean, we shouldn't need to wait for anybody else to do this. It's in our gift as North Northampton Council to do this for our towns. I just wanted to say as well, thank you to Councillor Doddridge for bringing forward the motion. I'll be voting in favour of it. It feels like a natural next step on this item. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wendy Brackenbury.
Thank you, Chair. I will be supporting this motion, but I am really disappointed to hear the leader say yet again that this administration is doing more than the previous administration. He constantly talks about working cross-party, but that dismissal of the work that went on the previous 4 years, there was a lot of work. There was a lot of work at moving into one council, which this council talks a lot about. We had a lot of work to do. A lot of work was going on, and I think it's really disappointing to keep hearing the dismissal of that work. I think it's important that we work cross-party for the good of our communities across North Northants. Thank you.
Thank you all. I have no further councillors registered to speak. I will now invite the mover of the motion, Councillor Kerry Doddridge, to close the debate.
I get 3 minutes, don't I? Just to be sure.
3 minutes, absolutely.
With all due respect, Ken, it might surprise you to know that I do have a fully functioning brain, and I am well within my powers to think for myself. As much as I admire and love working with Jen, I do not need to take any direction, and I'll leave it to her to decide if she wants to make a complaint on that basis. And with respect, I don't understand what you mean by what money is needed for this. As far as I'm aware, this is policy without cost or with a lower cost. This isn't about throwing money recklessly at an idea because I want it done quick. I get that we want to be frugal and prudent with our money. It's about the fact that, as far as I was aware, Wellingborough had already been chosen, and we should have been at the process of picking which streets, which, if that's where we should have been, then yes, we're behind. Where did I get to? Sorry, consultation. Yep. The 11 other councils that have already done this have already reclaimed 66 units and have seen an 8% decrease in vacancy rates on their high streets. We could be somewhere near that if we weren't doing this next piece that should have already been in, January? Sorry, there, Jim's notes. The master plan, you have our support with that. We've been very active in it. We love the idea, but these are not things that need to be done together, because you could have had this happen in Kettering or Corby where the master plan's happening in Wellingborough. They are not necessarily needing to work in tandem, and one may progress at a quicker rate than the other anyway. Business costs raised as a reason don't align with the fact that town centres have been suffering lower footfall and empty vacancy rates, and sometimes landlords not renting them out for a problem a lot longer than 2 years. So it's not entirely down to that. And part of the point of this coming forward was two of my points on here, because I will say I did submit this on the 23rd of June. No, I didn't, sorry. The meeting was for the 25th of June, wasn't I? So whenever the deadline should have been ahead of that, I submitted this motion quite some time ago, before a lot of the information started to flow. Unfortunately, I got more information once I put this motion in through email, but the public don't have access to that information, and that's my point. It's the same as the Jackson's Lane car park thing. People find out a bit later on down the road and that's what's causing the contention in the area. So one of the points I've asked for was to develop the High Street revival process, set out how the council will use these powers.
Councillor, if we can just round up, we're running out of time.
Okay, sorry. And then a long-term register. Yeah, sorry, brain's just died mid-sentence, but you're good. You get the point.
Thank you. We'll now move to a vote. Please use your electronic voting buttons, which will appear on your microphone unit once the vote has commenced. You will have 30 seconds to vote. Democratic Services to announce the results of the vote.
Voting has commenced. Ten seconds left. (22 for), 35 against and 2 abstentions.
The motion is lost. We move on to motion 3. Please may I see Councillor Simon Fairhill to move the motion.
I have no doubt that there are members of planning and transport teams and some members who have looked at this motion and wondered why, for they do much of this already, including the engagement of independent expertise. And I'm sure that this is the case. However, this motion is one of optics and understanding, and to try and provide greater assurance to our local communities as we develop our local plan and local transport plan. Joined up working is not something that governments are renowned for, be that national or local government, but we're a unitary, so it's all in our hands. Let us prove our worth by developing these plans in Northamptonshire, which are robust, built on sound evidence, all-encompassing, cross-department, basically that are exemplar. I'm sure that there is detailed technical information about the number of vehicles and journeys generated by proposed new housing and employment developments, and every development is properly assessed through the planning process. But to respond well to this needs a level of technical expertise which is more often than not available to local communities and parish councils. And I also fear that the process assesses on an individual application or individual site basis rather than consideration given to cumulative effects, especially when a major contribution is, in my ward especially, going to come from across borders. And the counter is neither started nor reset to zero at the border, which is why the local plan and the local transport plan are so important, for they set the parameters for our planning decisions. I'm stealing for a motion agreed last night across party lines at Huntingdonshire District Council. Why use AI when you copy a few councillors, in this instance a Conservative and Labour? Public confidence, to quote, public confidence in the local plan process depends upon decisions being informed by the most complete, current and transparent evidence available. The cumulative impact of development should be properly understood before strategic decisions are taken on the scale and distribution of future growth. A local plan that is not supported by clear evidence on infrastructure delivery risks being less effective, less credible and less capable of commanding public confidence. Effective infrastructure planning requires close engagement with infrastructure providers, neighbouring authorities and relevant government departments. The official response from NNC to the potential 3,000 to 5,000 houses proposed for West Wittering, literally along the Peterborough North Northamptonshire border along the A47, said, "At this stage, although no cross-boundary issues are raised in relation to the site, please continue to engage with us as your plan progresses to ensure that we can collaborate on any potential cumulative impacts on infrastructure, including the strategic and local road networks of any development." So whilst pleased with the recognition of potential impacts and the request for collaboration, also disappointed because there were plenty of local people, over 1,000, and parish councils whose responses very clearly identified current and future challenges. And I can assure the Chamber that the response from the one ward councillor interested in affairs across the whole of the Oundle ward was more strongly worded. I attended the planning committee this time last year that considered one of the Thrapston warehouse developments and was as amused as I think many of the committee were at the applicant's transport assessments, when we compared it with our own evidence of driving that patch of the highways network now. So 2 things to comment on here. It's why we include a call for the engagement of independent highways experts to assuage the concerns of the local communities along the length of the A605 and those in similar situations in your own wards across the whole of the unitary, and to give greater assurance that the implications of proposed developments have been fully and fairly and openly considered. Not least in this particular instance, because, and this is why I'm quoting things from across the eastern border, but there are proposals within the Northamptonshire local plan for a significant warehouse development at the other end of the A605 at Peterborough, which will exit directly onto the 605 and further compound these concerns. So I ask for your support to this motion that as we develop our local plan and local highways plan, we engage with independent highways experts to quantify and understand the impact of proposed developments on our existing and future residents and businesses and engage fully with our neighbouring communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. May I see Councillor Scott Brown to second the motion?
Thank you, Chair. As the Councillor for Earls Barton, I see the daily reality this motion addresses. My ward sits on the border with West Northants, and we're only a stone's throw away from the Bedfordshire boundary. This means we don't just feel the pressures from developments within North Northants, we're directly impacted by what our neighbouring authorities are planning too. Roads don't stop at council boundaries. Recent large-scale housing developments, such as Overston Gate and proposals for land west of the A43, are already adding significant extra traffic onto the A43. That pressure flows straight onto our local roads through villages like mine and onto key routes such as the A509 and A45. We all want to see substantial growth, but we cannot keep approving major developments without properly understanding the cumulative impact on our highways and public rights of way. Residents within the Earls Barton ward and surrounding areas are already experiencing increasing congestion, rat running and safety concerns. We need robust evidence, not optimistic assumptions. That's why I strongly support the call for independent highways experts to quantify these impacts as part of the new local plan and local transport plan. We must have open and transparent engagement with our neighbouring authorities where their plans affect our infrastructure. This motion is about protecting the safety and enjoyment of our places for both existing and future residents. I urge all councillors to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any councillor wish to speak on the motion? Councillor Brackenbury, David Brackenbury.
Thank you again, Chair, and I appreciate speaking in this debate. Well, of course, the local plan is a massive piece of work which will take years to undertake and will, when adopted, provide some limited protection against unwanted development. But we have to look a bit further than this, Chair. We have a government who are pledged to deliver 1.5 million homes within the period of this Parliament, when they're falling way behind. We have a government who is in fact trying to amend the planning system, both in terms of the soundness of local plans and in terms of actual housing delivery and numbers, by making it a much more permissive environment. And we are going to find that growth is going to be foisted upon many communities up and down the country, including Northamptonshire. It was rightly pointed out about the pressures on the A605 and the cumulative impact of development. And believe me, I have been at the planning meetings where warehouse developments on the A605 were discussed. I've been at the appeal of the other massive warehouse development in Thrapston. I gave evidence on it, and I made the point about the cumulative impact of development, because planning applications are considered legally and rightly on their own merits. The cumulative impact is rarely taken into account. So it is so important that we work with all stakeholders to provide robust evidence. So we can't just make it up as we go along. It's got to be robust, tested evidence that will inform the local plan. Because if you're putting in evidence that is not robust, it'll be ripped to pieces by the planning inspectorate. The local plan will be thrown out as unsound, and then you'll be living and dying by planning and appeal. And that is a very tilted balance. So we have to, I absolutely support the wording in this motion. It pretty much says what you're supposed to do anyway. So, Councillor Fairhall's right to say why bring it. But he's right also to bring it because it emphasises the point that needs to be made. The local plan is absolutely crucial for what we are going to be doing in Northamptonshire, reaching right out to 2045. But the evidence base that backs it up has got to be robust, and we all have to be very careful of the government's and maybe future governments' ambitions on a strategic scale. Thank you.
Councillor McGiffin.
Thank you, Chair. Hello all. Chair, may I first of all add my congratulations to your appointment this evening. Chair, I welcome the question, and I have to say, I was dismayed and surprised when I read it, because my experience over the year has been, surely this is already in place. Certainly it's too serious to take lightly. So I did my research, and I have established a set of activities and criteria that sit behind all this, some of which I'd like to share with you. It's very detailed. The planning policy team and the strategic transport teams work together in commissioning experts in the transport field to support transport modelling and advise on survey outputs that inform the making of robust and defendable decisions affecting development and transport. In terms of preparing the local plan, through the duty to cooperate, there is a duty to cooperate. The team considers inter- and cross-boundary issues and cumulative impacts of development proposals on infrastructure, including the strategic and local road networks. They do this already. This includes working with National Highways on the impact on the strategic road network within Northamptonshire. Evidence for this includes the Council's response to the recent Peterborough City Council alternative sites consultation into their local plan, which sought comment on a proposed large development in Wittering, close to our border. Our response acknowledged the remoteness of the site to Peterborough and the major infrastructure improvements needed. As highlighted in their published consultation material, we also raised our desire to collaborate on any potential cumulative impacts resulting on the A605 and surrounding area. In developing the local plan, the Council obtains traffic forecasts using data from the Department of Transport's National Trip End Model, NTEM, which includes projections for population, employment, housing, car ownership and trip rates. NTEM includes data from adopted local plans across the country. Traffic forecasts are first generated at the local plan optioneering stage to understand the impacts of proposals and refined as the local plan develops to determine necessary mitigation measures for the development proposals which are included in the plan. Councillor Fairhall, it's an extensive document. There are more pages. There's a lot of detail. I'd very much like the opportunity to share it with you outside this meeting, write to you with the detail, and if there's anything missing, then we'll discuss it offline. But sincerely, I can't propose the plan because from what I've found out, we do this already. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Chair. And I share Councillor Brackenbury's concerns about planning and the government's ambitious target for housing that they are woefully behind with, and where that leaves councils like Northamptonshire. So I do share those concerns. I'm going to pick up quickly on what Councillor Wendy Brackenbury said. I wasn't being overcritical of the last administration. In fact, earlier on in my speech, did I not mention that we covered a subject of chaos to confidence, bringing a unitary council forward from the ground up? So I recognise that the first 4 years of Northamptonshire Council was going to be a very difficult time, but we have made progress, and we are making progress on this, and that is the local plan. To me, this is simply a motion about trust, and I've got trust, total trust in our officers. I've got total trust in our plan, and that is about delivering a local plan that works for Northamptonshire. There is a suggestion going on that we agree a motion even though we're already doing stuff. Why would you want to do that? Here's a suggestion. Let's have some ambition. Let's deliver motions on ambitious things that we are not already doing. There's a challenge to put out to councillors in this chamber. Other than that, Councillor McGiffin, as always, has covered every point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hakewell.
I don't think we are already doing these things. This is my third local plan since 1989, and I've never seen independent highways advice so crucial as it is at the moment, as mentioned by other councillors that I won't name. What tends to happen is we get development companies, people who are proposing things, do their own work. He who pays the piper calls the tune. If we're already doing it, there's absolutely no reason that we can't unanimously vote for this motion, because what we're saying is not we want something different, but we're all agreeing with the gist of this particular motion. So I'm very happy to support it, as you might imagine. Local plan is 30 months. That's the scheme we're under. And we need to do something about this, and we need to have it in the cognizance of elected members and officers that independent advice of the sequential nature that the councillor to my right mentioned. Most of our road infrastructure that runs through and between our towns and villages is little different from what it was decades ago. And yet tens of thousands of houses have been built and millions of square feet of employment buildings constructed. Bypasses have been built, and the A14, a new road, I remember that, I was there when it was opened, but they were constructed to ease the existing congestion at that time, rather than to cope with massive growth that we now experience. Infrastructure has not kept up. Most notably the Isham bypass and the dualling of the A43, both of which were years ago considered to be essential, and that's between Kettering and Northampton. Failing transport infrastructure and daily congestion impacts people's lives, their health, their well-being, and hinders economic growth. Across Northamptonshire, rat running drivers make life miserable for residents, not least in my ward in Rothwell, Pytchley, Broughton, Harrington and Rushton. All the residents of those communities suffer massively from people who choose not to use the main arterial routes, but to take rat runs through towns and villages in that way. So the sequential impact of this, I have never seen any report in all my time on the council from an independent person who said adding all these houses, all these warehouses, all this building up is going to have that impact. And having that independent advice will allow us to make sure we mitigate the impact in the communities that we all serve. I support the motion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Pengelly.
Yes, Chair, and I fully agree with what Councillor Haig was saying. What we do, and all our officers in planning in that area work really, really hard, but we rely too much on the developers. They put forward their transport plan, they do a sequential test on it, and we agree. And we saw it with the A605. Anybody that thought that the plans for the A605 for the transport added up, they just didn't. And when you look at Max Park in Corby, that's had all the work done for the roads on there. If you're coming from Frapston to Corby, there's queues growing right down past Little Stanion. It's not been done correctly. And when you look at the land west of Corby, people can see that the proposals put forward by the developers are not just good enough for what Corby needs. They jumped in the bottom of Beanfield. I know some of our fellow councillors do the bottom of Beanfield. That should be a roundabout. They've just put some wider lanes there. This needs done in a professional way by independent people coming in to work with our officers, to work with the developers as well. If not, in a few years' time, there's going to be congestion everywhere, and they're going to blame us for it. So this will help each and every person that we represent. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rance.
Thank you, Chair. I want to start by acknowledging the concerns behind this motion. Highways and public rights of way impacts from development and real. They are often severe, and our residents feel them directly. Nobody in this chamber disagrees with that. But I cannot support this motion as drafted. Everything in this motion asks for already a statutory requirement, and it already happens. First, transport assessments. Under the National Plans Policy Framework, any development of meaningful scale must submit a transport assessment prepared by qualified independent transport consultants. The application pays, our highways teams scrutinise it. National Highways is a statutory consultee, that is the implement experts input the motions called for, and it is already built into the system. Second, our own officers, as a unitary authority, this council is both the local planning authority and the local highway authority for Northamptonshire. We employ qualified transport planners and planning officers directly, and we draw on qualified ecologists' inputs on every major application. They assess every scheme against adopted policy to call for an additional independent expert without defining what that means or what gap they will fill, risk reading as a vote of no confidence in the statutory team this council pays for. Third, neighbouring authorities. The duty to coordinate under the Localism Act 2011 already requires us to engage openly with neighbouring authorities on strategic cross-boundaries matters, including highways. It is not option. It is not new. So I'd put a simple question to the Chamber. What does this motion actually change? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to raise a point on why agreeing things in council, even if they are underway, matter. Around this time last year, I brought a motion to full council around Section 106 obligations, about making those more accessible to members of the public to see what's actually going on with our Section 106 funding. I was told at that meeting that that piece of work was already underway and therefore don't need to worry about it, sit down. That motion was ultimately voted down, and to this day I've still not seen that piece of work. So I think it's important to commit to these things, show people publicly that we do want to do this piece of work. And yeah, thank you. I'll be voting for this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Geary.
Thank you, Chair. The question is, we're probably doing all of this anyway. So my honest and genuine question, if it is, how come the output is not desirable?
Thank you, Councillor. I have no other councillors registered to speak, so I now invite the mover of the motion, Councillor Simon Fairhill, to close the debate.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Brackenbury, for highlighting the point around the fact that individual developments are determined on their own merits and not on the cumulative nature of developments, and therefore the importance of it for the local plan and the local highways plan comes to the fore. Councillor McGiffin, officers in this chamber will know that I read technical documents, lengthy documents, and respond, I like to think, positively to them. I would be delighted to receive the information. I've been a member of the local plan member advisory group during the course of last year. I unfortunately missed the local transport plan briefing the other week, but I don't believe that information, the detail of it, or even a level of the detail of that, was necessarily shared at that meeting the other week that I unfortunately missed. And my point is, and it echoes the point raised by a number of speakers, Councillor Williams, and the last in respect to the last motion as well, is it's the optics. I acknowledged in my opening remarks that I believe much of this work may well be going on. I acknowledge that, I see it, I appreciate it. But the optics, if I don't know the detail of things, how the heck are the local community going to know what the details of things are? And they will see decisions and they will see bits of information and be bemused or lack understanding. And that's what this motion was all about. Basically, it was all about sending a clear and strong message. Dare I say, flying a flag. The message we wanted to send was we wanted to reassure our communities. I don't know the full extent of the response to the first stage consultation on the local plan, but I have a good knowledge of the responses from my parish and town councils across my ward. I am confident that the motion responds to some very clearly stated concerns that they have. This motion proposes and tells our communities that we will support the development of an exemplar local plan and local transport plan by engaging the expertise that we believe is necessary to achieve that status. And equally, my understanding was that the duty to cooperate was being taken out of legislation, as it no longer being required. That may not have actually happened because lots of things get proposed, but on the basis that if it is there, great, let's pursue it. If it isn't there, this motion raises a point that says we want to cooperate. The value of cross-border collaboration applies in every direction, irrespective of the way in which our strategic future might go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We will now move to a vote. Please use your electronic voting buttons, which will appear on your microphone unit once the vote has commenced. You'll have 30 seconds to vote. Democratic Services to announce the results of the vote.
Voting is now started. Ten seconds remaining. Voting has now ended. 23 for, 30 against and 6 abstentions.
The motion is lost.
During the debate on the flying of the Ukrainian flag, it was stated that both the Armed Forces Day flag and the VJ Day flag were both covered by the policy. I've now had a copy of that policy and I've read it through from beginning to end, and it is absolutely correct that the Armed Forces Day flag is covered by that policy. The VJ Day commemoration flag is not. It says in one part of the policy that you will fly flags that are mandated by the government, but I have checked and the VJ Day commemorative flag was not mandated. It was to be flown at the discretion of individual councils. So I can confirm that you did make an exception to the flag flying policy. Thank you.
We just wait for that point of order to be considered. We're just using the equivalent of council VAR currently.
Reflected in the minutes.
Thank you. The point of order stands and will be reflected in the minutes. We move on to agenda item 11, councillor questions. Thank you. We have a number of questions submitted by councillors. One question has been submitted to this meeting. The questions and answers have been circulated and will be taken as read. I will therefore invite supplementary questions and ask that supplementary questions and responses should be incredibly concise. Question 1 has been presented by Councillor Mark Pengelly. Councillor Pengelly, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, can I thank the leader for his response? And my motion at full council was very clear. I asked for an amount of money to be put forward so that we can look at ideas around parking in the village. And I just want to know if the leader will agree with me that Northamptonshire Council and East Midlands Railways should also look at an area in the old village, and it could be along the railway track somewhere, for more parking for the railway station. That will also give Councillor Cheatley more money, because we can make money on parking to put into the council budgets, and should be really happy about that. So I think that's what we're looking for. I think Lee Duffy agrees with me. Every meeting we go to, we're getting residents really angry about the parking situation in Colby Old Village. Thank you.
Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm happy to take any suggestions of income-generating car parks for Northamptonshire to tackle our financial situation. And I actually discussed this with officers very recently in respect of proximity to Kettering railway station as well. So I will give you a written response in the required timescales, if that's okay, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 2 has been presented by Councillor William Calhoun. Councillor, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, Chair, I do. Pardon me. I would like to ask the executive member, the reason I brought this question is because so many residents were asking me, is the bonfire on, off, not on, maybe on, but maybe not. And I didn't know the answer, so that's why I brought the question. But my supplementary question is, how committed is the authority to trying to ensure that it doesn't fall by the wayside? Pardon the pun, but that it isn't a damp squib in future. Would the executive member agree with me that the authority should be committed to the bonfire night, which has been going on for 30 or 40 odd years, whatever? The reason I ask is that because in the response it says we're committed to work with relevant partners, and we're at the end of the phone if you need support. Conversations with other people have taken place. And finally, is it acceptable that the council welcomes anyone interested to get in touch? Does that constitute a commitment, is my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilcox.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Yes, we are fully committed to and look into any way possible to keep the bonfire running. But unfortunately, the council itself, and I'm of that agreement, that we cannot waste any money ourselves on a bonfire night. But we are looking at every angle, but any support from any authority or body that can help us, and then it could go ahead. But it's a bit like, I think, some of our developments in town centres. It's just something that has gone before, and it's going to have a hard job to keep running and go in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'd like to make sure we focus on the supplementary questions during these sections. Question 3 has been presented by Councillor Helen Harrison. Councillor Harrison, do you have any supplementary questions?
Yes, I do, and I'd like to thank Councillor Wright for her response. It's very detailed, and I would like to take the opportunity to say how delighted I am that the Ofsted report has come back with all areas good, and so I'm talking about the Children's Trust, by the way, in case you've not read the question, and that the area of leadership was rated as outstanding. And I don't know if Cornelia is in the room today. I haven't looked around, but I'd like to just offer her and all the team my congratulations. So apologies, I know I am getting on to the supplementary question, but I thought it was I wanted to get that on record. My supplementary, the reason I asked this question is because, like everybody else, I think, in this room, I am very, very worried about the financial situation that we find ourselves in. Over the last 4 years, the Children's Trust has cumulatively overspent by almost £100 million across Northamptonshire, and the hit to this council has been around about £45 million. So what assurances can you give that as we move forward, whether we end up with the children's services coming back into this council or whether we continue with the Children's Trust, what assurances can you give to us that there are robust systems in place to help the Children's Trust to come in on budget and to start to deliver those wonderful services that they are delivering, but at a cost that is correct, because at the moment we are one of the highest spending councils on children's services.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison, for your question. Yes, we have overspent in children's services. However, what we've done is we've started to invest in our services. However, that process just cannot be sustainable. So what we're doing is, over the coming months now, we are going to be in conversations with the Children's Trust. We will be bringing them to corporate scrutiny, so our scrutiny can scrutinise that budget and ask the robust questions that are needed. I personally, we're working with the Children's Trust to see if and where savings can be made, but we also need to protect our services, because we did have a fantastic Ofsted report, and this was down to the fantastic staff and officers that were working in there. And what we don't want is to create any instability following that fantastic Ofsted report, and so we need to do both in harmonisation.
Thank you. Question 4 has been presented by Councillor Emily Fedorovich. Councillor Fedorovich, do you have any supplementary question?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I do. So, firstly, I'd just like to thank Councillor Wilcox for the comprehensive response. It was really, really helpful. I just wanted to dig in slightly more into, you sort of stated here that effectiveness is monitored via like feedback and safeguarding indicators, but it's not clear if this is actually measured against sort of actual outcomes. So I wanted to just ask, could we or do we currently have any measures of success linked in with police targets and KPIs to specifically reduce these issues? And if not, can we consider this going forward? Thank you.
Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you for your question. What I will do is get back to you within 5 working days with the answer. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank
you, Councillor. Question 5 has been presented by Councillor Simon Fairhall. Councillor Fairhall, do you have any supplementary question?
Please. Acknowledging the financial pressures that we are under as a council, can I ask that when the report noted is prepared, that it also considers the consequential costs that will likely be incurred from not continuing with support for our fantastic voluntary and community sector, and also look at ways in which to increase commissioning of them as part, perhaps, of our transformation work? Thank you.
Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you again for your question, and I will get back to you, Mr. Fairhall, within 5 days. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Question 6 has been presented by Councillor Carrie Dudridge. Councillor Dudridge, do you have any supplementary question?
Sorry, it's Kelly. Yeah, sorry, I have a question. Thank you for the response, Ken. I'll reassure you that I did actually think of this question myself too. Your first paragraph there about the use of the tip and the surrounding areas. I've lived by it for 12 years. I'm well acquainted with the usual patterns of traffic and everything that happen around there, and I've used it many times. You talk about reducing the risk of accidents. Do we have any figures and data for the numbers of accidents that we might have had, in what kind of period, what kind of near misses? You've got here, third paragraph, about comparative data since the change, but it doesn't stipulate what period it's covering, or the comparison doesn't quite seem to match up. It's a little bit oranges to apples rather than apples to apples. Sorry, that was a really poor analogy. Registering the complaints about the use and the changes, where you say there's only 1%, doesn't really acknowledge that a lot of the complaints aren't necessarily going to be registered anyway. A lot of people are just word of mouth complaining on social media or in other spaces when we're knocking doors and they're saying about it, particularly if they live near there or they're people that work there. So unfortunately it's a less reliable metric to some extent, but I appreciate it's the only one you've got. And then on the last paragraph about increasing demand, what measures were implemented to account for the fact that West Northampton changed some of their policy that meant those who live on the west side of our area are no longer allowed to use the tip in Northampton, and we've now taken on that capacity?
Yes, thank you. Councillor Harrington, and I will remind that it's a single question specific, not a general questioning.
Okay. Right, Chair, thank you very much indeed. Let me just say at the outset here that the changes were made for the right reasons. We wanted to reduce the risk of accidents. Now, I use the Wellingborough site quite often, and I've seen a lot of people, sort of near accidents. So that was one of the reasons we first of all made it. But we assume nothing. We do monitor these sites, and we are flexible. We are flexible enough to change if we think we have to. But the interesting thing, as I said in the reply, is that the services received 3 stage 1 complaints. Only 3. I don't know about social media, I don't do it. But I know that we received 3 stage 1 complaints. But we do, which actually queries represent less than 1% of site users. We do know that people are coming in from out of the area to use our site. We do know that, and we're monitoring that and trying to make sense of it. But just to give you an idea, in the original answer, the site had 35,000 visitors who used the facility from March until April. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Question 7 has been presented by Kelly Dudridge. Councillor Dudderidge, do you have a supplementary question?
Sorry, I do, yes. Thank you again for a really comprehensive answer, Councillor McGiffin. There is a possibility there's been a bit of a confusion here because you've given me a really great answer on the key parameters of the contract and repairs and so on, but I meant more water companies, gas companies, retention rates from when we take money off them and then they get it back if the repair is of a satisfactory standard, and when they're not, what's happening there. So there is a little bit of a problem, I guess, with a 50-word limit, not possibly getting that across. But thank you very much for the answer.
Thank you for your question. Councillor McGiffin.
Oops. Memo to self, don't sit too close to the pillar. Thank you, Councillor Dudderidge. We'll clarify that for you. I do know that there are a number of mechanisms in place to both fine utility companies who use our highways and don't leave them the way we prefer. And indeed, there is motion in place to begin to essentially rent out the space. So we fine before the event almost. I'll get the fine detail to you and I'll write to you very shortly. Thank you.
We have the situation of the guillotine approaching fast, so if we can keep it succinct, we will finish business, but we may have to consider extending or guillotining. Question 8 has been presented by Councillor Emily Fedorovich. Councillor Fedorovich, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much, Chair. Firstly, thank you for both councillors for the response and for the information. Here, this shares that we have a youth fund for youth projects, capital grants for capital projects, and broad support for the voluntary sector. However, the gap for accessible funding for grassroots projects and small community groups still remains. How does the council intend to address this funding gap? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you for that question. Again, if I can get back to you within 5 working days, I'll give you the answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Question 9 has been presented by Councillor James Towns. Councillor Towns, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Councillor Kirk-Harrison, for the responses. For question 9, the Jobs Yard saga has been going on for over 6 years now, has been widely publicised in local press and TV news, and remains a safety concern to those visiting and living in Kettering Town Centre. I'm going to ask that Northamptonshire Council confirm they will keep the public fully up to date as the key stages outlined in the response to the question are reached, so that they can be assured that the progress is ongoing.
Thank you, Councillor.
The short answer to that is yes, but can I just clarify that there are 3 questions on this same subject. Am I going to be answering all 3 together, or is there an opportunity for a supplementary for all 3?
I would.
Supplementary questions.
They will need to be taken in order.
Okay, fine. So I will answer the short version, yes, and will await any further questions. Thank you.
Question 10 has been presented by Councillor James Towns. Councillor Towns, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, Chair, I do. A route for pedestrians to use Jobs Yards Lane remains open, given that updated surveys and inspections are required on the condemned building. Can NNC give categorical assurance to pedestrians or workmen who might use the route that they can do so safely?
Thank you. Councillor Kirk-Harrison.
I think, again, the shortest answer I can give is yes. The longer answer is that we will be taking specialist engineering advice on any safety issues, and we will respond accordingly. So, thank you.
Thank you. Question 11 has been presented by Councillor James Towns. Councillor Towns, do you have a supplementary question?
No, Chair. I'm satisfied with the response. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Urgent items. There are no urgent items of business to be considered on the agenda. Thank you, councillors and officers and members of the public watching, either in the gallery or at home. That now completes the business of the meeting.